afternoon, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started.
I opened it and they loved it. They hadn't missed this.
Oh.
And that was,
What I said in the email, for those of you that got it, was Reverend Bob Johnstone is going to come here today and do a demonstration of how his mediumship works. And Bob tends to work with colors and inspirational intention of how to put the colors on a piece of paper, and then he folds them together and opens it out and interprets what he sees for you. And this is in keeping with a very old tradition of spiritualism called ribbon readings. The original way, it's kind of like billet readings or ribbon readings, where there's another medium used that the person, the client, so to speak, can see and be involved in, rather than mental mediumship where we just speak to you. This is a very interesting methodology that he uses. I've never seen it done like this before. I have seen ribbon readings done. And what they do is they come around, the medium comes around with a tray with different colors and sizes of ribbons, and you pick 3 or 4 ribbons and put them on the tray. And that activates the medium's intuition, and they give you a reading based on what they see in front of them. So this is similar in some fashion to how this process works. So I guess we could have, I'll do this for about 15 or 20 minutes, pick some people in the group and have a go. So we can set your table up here, or how do you want to do it?
I found that I needed some kind of a tool to work with, that I could identify in some way that I could contact the person without going into distant mental mediumship. Sometimes I'm a little too judgmental in my mediumship. Like Charles, I would say, has too much hair on his face or something. It would set me off. But we can't do that. So when you're working with colors, it can help you so much. It can really help you to start that intuitiveness. And this is something I learned in Chesterfield by a medium named Norman Williams. And at that time, he hadn't developed it like we had. My friend and I really developed it. And we felt we were seeing the fetus being created in the mother's womb. And as the seed is planted, of course, the color of red is the first color. And those of you that are involved with the chakras, that's what I'm talking about. The first color we see in the root chakra is red. So if somebody wears red, I would contact that person to needing to make some kind of contact with their family. So I have a piece of paper here, and I fold it. And I feel that this is the spinal column of the individual that I'm reading. And I ask the individual to give me the colors that they feel. So what color for your family? Ma'am, what color for your family? Yes.
green.
Green? Now, my intuition would tell me that because you chose the color green, it's related to the heart energy, and now I'm connecting it because I asked you to give me a color for family. And that color can either be a dark color, dark green, or a light green. Dark green means it's a little bit overripe. Light green means it's ripe. Okay? You're going to pick the light green. And I feel this intentioning for healing. Wherever you stand in love, it can be so connecting with something there. At this time, when you said family, you connected it with love or something you had to do for healing in your family. So I will put that on now in the first place on. Are you okay with what I said to you now? With the color green? You don't have to explain. It's as simple as that, though. And now you might say to me, yes, I'm having a little problem with the family right now, and you're connecting. So I would connect and go a little bit deeper into that situation with the person I'm reading for. John, what color for the material things?
Purple.
And color to me is the third eye, the intuition. And I know John is very grateful for the things that he has right now in his life. what's happening in his life. He's very satisfied with conditions. And I would say that he's using his intuitive ability.
You
to
doing a
bring in
reading, you doing a
more
reading for the
material
group,
things.
Bob?
Pardon
You
me?
doing a reading for the group, is that what you're doing?
Individuals, yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, just trying to get clear what you're doing. Normally
Is
you do
everybody
it.
clear with what I'm trying to do? It's as if you were a client, one client coming to me. I'm trying to just work with the whole group.
Are you just putting the colors on the spine?
Yes. Because just visualize a seed being created, or the egg being created. Any questions? Because sometimes I go too fast. I'm not aware of what level people are at. So if I'm Steve, then step me, and I have to think about it. So the second chakra is actually orange. But John picked the color purple. And that's the third eye. And I'd say that he's doing very well in his life in creating bountiful things by bringing in the color purple, by using the third eye. With me? You know, I have 20 years in this, doing this almost every day. And so when you get in front of a group, you think you're going too fast or too slow. So please ask me questions.
You just put that on top of the green?
Yes, it continues to build up. What color do you have for your stress?
For stress?
Right.
Red.
Red? Well, red is a root chakra. And if somebody says it's for stress, which is the solar plex, it's generally something to do with the family issues. Your acceptance of family, your seeing your family, your connection with family. Any questions on that? You okay with that?
You said red's with the family.
Red is related. I asked you what was
I know it's
stress.
a root chakra.
Yeah.
And so,
The connection was that because it was a root, we placed it in stress. I'm seeing something to do with the root chakra, which is causing you some stress. Now, stress is two things, isn't it? Stress can either be a negative approach or a positive approach. So I, as a medium, have to dig out from the client just what the situation is. Is it a negative or a positive? You seem to have a question.
No, I'm just trying to follow, that's all.
Okay, well, you know the 7 chakras.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I relate to with each color. But I'm here on the solar plex right now.
Right. Yeah.
You got it now?
Yeah, I got it.
Maybe it'd be easier if I worked with just the chakras and then show you what the effect is. Would that be easier?
I think it's good.
Yeah.
Just do what you do.
So, you know, here's the emotional area. The solar plex is the emotional area.
Right.
Where we feel, I gotta get on with it, I gotta reach a higher level. Or I gotta back up. It's a push. So with the family situation, it's either a negative or a positive. But the client will, the client will determine what you have to repeat.
Reverend Bob, are you starting with the root chakra and working up? Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Going through the chakras?
That's right. Because in order to do things in life, you must have a system you work with. In the Catholic Church, it's a catechism that everybody repeats. In the Hindu philosophy, there's something they repeat, chant, and it brings you to where you want to be. It's the same with this. What I've done is just taken the 7 chakras. I know them by heart, so I'm connected all with your personal things. Your personal life. The first thing you have is your family connection. The second thing you have is a need for financial. You need to harvest, the orange. And thirdly, it's the stress area here that makes you do what you have to do when it has to be done.
So, Bob, if I can, we were talking about Karen. Bless you. and the color red came up for her root chakra, and then you related it to her family,
Yes,
and then and it was about stress. So,
yes.
does that mean that there's a family connection, you're saying that?
There's something she should be thinking about with family. Either accepting, the beautiful things that are going on, or seeing that it's not really the way it should be and I should do something about it.
The situation's causing stress.
Is it, see, that's, without going into details on what it is, it always connects, believe me. I'm so good at this stuff, and everybody can be, once you relate to the person's culture. Would you take a seat, please, Steve?
Walk her out.
So I've covered the first three chakras, which are really the most difficult parts of us to control as earthly creatures. Can you accept that? Dealing with family, looking for the material things that we need in order for our everyday life, and we can get greedy. Even if we're not needy, sometimes we can get greedy, and that would bother us. And the third one is the solar plex, when things bother us. But we have to learn to work with those three chakras. And the next area is the heart. When those three chakras are out of line, the heart will really take its toll. With your stress, you feel that in the heart area, because the love isn't the same as it should be. It's not unconditional. So I see the heart, and I ask the client give me a color for unconditional love. Could you do that for me, please? Yes. Blue. Blue? Dark or light? Dark blue or light blue?
Light blue.
Light blue? The gentleman here is very loving and kind and communicative with the heart. You really speak from the heart, don't you? I better ask you that.
Oh, yes.
But most people think when you say love, they think of the physical part of love. But you also connect on the three levels of the body and the spirit. You speak from that level. You speak with kindness and understanding. Not only with us, but I'd say with the animal kingdom, just as equal. Can you relate to what I'm saying? St. Francis of Assisi would be a very good friend of yours. Because you could just stand there and relate.
He said he is here at the
He's
statue.
behind me, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like your questions because I want to leave you with something. I don't want to waste my time here today, folks. If you're getting something, fine. And when I get the questions back, I can give you some answers that I have. And usually this is a 30-day course, which I get $5,000 for. I haven't had any clients lately. Can you relate to the unconditional love?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're at the throat chakra, which is the actual color is blue. But I'm going to ask, could you give me a color for how you communicate with people? Communicate is just looking at me now.
All right, we'll go with yellow.
Pardon?
Yellow?
Yellow?
Mhm.
And yellow is connected with the solar
Solar
plexus.
plexus.
And how would you relate that to what you told me?
Instinctual.
Do you have stress in communicating?
More like I don't exactly have things that everybody wants to hear. So, in that aspect, yeah, I guess so.
Just be honest, because really nobody else cares.
Depends.
But you have to look after you.
Is that professional or personal that he's talking about? Just
Yeah.
communication, because if it's professional, he may be required to say things that people aren't always want to hear, so. If it's personal, that's a different focus.
You're not doing something that is good for you.
No, I get asked questions that people want answers to, and when I give them the answers, they don't like them. So,
But
Tell it like it
sometimes-
is.
Pretty much.
Sometimes it's good to say, I don't know at this time, I'll look into it.
yeah, I can't do that.
You're in the right group.
But you know, you can't separate business from pleasure because it's all you.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you do in life reflects on who you are. But isn't that amazing, the color yellow, and you answer? Okay, Steve, that meets your satisfaction.
Somewhat, so-so.
Rita, what color for your psychic ability?
Red was my color.
For psychic ability? I've
Red.
already got red, you can't have red
I
anymore.
know it.
You
Can't
can't
have
have any of these colors I've already chosen. Which one? For your psychic ability, your sixth sense, your mother's intuition.
What?
Your grandmother's intuition. Intuition, what color?
Well, the other color would have been purple and it's been taken too, so. What, lavender, lilac? My great-grandmother's
They
favorite
don't make
color.
these colors like they do.
Lilac.
I'm gonna put on pink.
Doesn't make any difference what you
Is that a good color for pink?
What can you say?
Well, I'm the boss here, I'm standing up.
That's what we're saying.
The third eye, and I know Rita looks on everybody with love and conditioning. And this lady took me in when I was alone in Chesterfield. I needed a place and somebody just to put their arms around me. And she took me in. I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for that, because I was ready to quit. I was ready to quit my mission, my ministry. But she was there, and she said, and then next year I came down and I brought 6 people to land in her house. We had beds all over the place and food. But you see how, again, pink is really where you should be, with the third eye. And that's why Bonnie sticks with it. Okay?
What does pink signify?
The aura of the heart. That's what I see you have wanting to condition. But you have black as well, with the pink, and the black is really controlling.
Well, actually, I put it on because I couldn't iron this morning. It was wrinkled.
You did that for a reason.
Okay.
Is everybody aware of black, the color black? To me, it's the most important color in the universe. It's where God created light from. In the darkness, there's always light. And as I look at you, I can't really see too much until I come up close. And then I start to see your light shine through the black. But otherwise, it's still the darkness for this period. But if I watch closer, I'll see your heart. It's very big. But I have to be, and I have to concentrate. And that's darkness. Oh. Yes, ma'am. I'm deaf, so I.
I'm sorry.
Speak up, yes, ma'am.
Does it kind of block people from seeing the energy, or,
In a way.
you know?
Just think of the curtain in the theater. If you go to the theater and there's an act on a stage, and they close that act by drawing a black curtain down. So your eyes are really closed for that few minutes. And when they raise the curtain, they can give you a brand new scene. And that's what you're doing. You're black, you're this part of it, but you want to show it a little bit of that. Then I can give you a good answer.
Yeah.
And that's why women, when they first went into the banking industry and the professional business, they wore the black suits and white shirts. It made them professional. And still today, the best color women can wear for professionalism is the color black. You okay with that?
Yes.
What color are you going to tell me for your creator?
White.
White? Why? Good. Well, and actually, that isn't the crown chakra, is white. So you're right on. I believe you believe in your creator being with you. You have a strong belief. Now, why I said creator is because it's neutral. Those of you that are in the Buddhist faith or Hindu faith, if you say to them creator, it means differently than if I said, tell me about God. God is very Christian, very Catholic, very Protestant. The Creator is neutral to everybody. And that's what's going on here at the camp, and I've been looking for that for years, to be able to say Creator.
Get political, Bob. You're being recorded.
You recorded this?
It's gonna be on YouTube all over the place tomorrow.
I'd like you to give me black or silver.
Silver.
See, and I know you. This I feel is the 8th chakra, and it's walking the red path, and I know you have a lot of connections with that. You have a lot, so I would see that with you, is working through all that almighty heaven and earth, everything that you're together. Silver is, to me, Mother Earth, very feminine. That's what you chose. The feminine red path. You're a teacher too. I don't know if you're teaching the red path, but you're good. You have enough knowledge too. Well, that's the 8th chakras. And if you were my client, I'd be asking you each of these individual questions, and you don't necessarily know I'm working the chakras. Sometimes I mix them up. You know, I'll ask for a color for the Creator first, and go to the root next. But I know, because I keep the bottles, and know that if you notice, all the bottles are 7 to 8 chakras, so I know where I am. Now, if you see that, that's a spark that you have within you that I feel is a soul. Okay? And I've made this out of the individual. Now I take it like this. This is a special gift I have of rubbing it out.
That's why it costs $5,000. Special rub
If you see all the colors that I put on here, and the bright colors are showing up. And I know that's why you folks are here, because you share that energy with Steve. And our Sunday morning service showing when we go to Steve's class. There's lots of love, and there's lots of opening, and there's lots of potential. And it's not a hard family issue, it's a lovable family issue. You see, it's a light red. That's right. So this is the bottom of your spine. For the root, there's lots of healing, lots of potential for the class. You see the green here? And that's what I feel, the healing session. And that's the next step, I think, that Steve is going to do with this class, is bring the healing class together. And that's more important, really, than the psychic development.
Can you pass that around?
Sure.
It's wet, so
I just want to
assume.
remember it goes like this.
Can you take a picture of it or go out?
There's an extra fee for that.
I thought that's why I asked.
Any questions while we're passing it around? You know, I guess I've made thousands of these, and I don't really know what I'm doing. It just happens. As I see something, the color red, or the color purple, or the color yellow, as I have for you, and you clicked into it. Just by mentioning stress and, the area of the body, and it comes. It really is a fascinating tool.
Does it always come out as a butterfly?
Well, I make them that way. I always make, the wings, that have the wings.
You're right there.
But a lot of other people do it, but they can't get the butterfly, they can't get the shape.
Thanks, Bob.
Send me a check, Bob.
Send a check.
Yeah.
He said he sent him a check.
Who's he?
So let's say you were doing this with a client, and
Oh,
you're
yes.
going to give them a reading from it. Would you give me a reading as they chose the colors and you put them on the paper? Or would you give a reading after you made the butterfly?
I like to do it after because I don't want them to know what I'm doing.
So you just have to remember which ones they gave you.
Well, that's why I like them up there.
Oh, good. I like that.
So you have to do this outside of the camp?
No, he's permitted to do it.
I'm permitted
When you
here.
say they don't allow for download
because it's not a tool like I'm
I've
telling.
got a question, Steve. When you do the colors like Bob just did, or if you do tarot cards or stones, there's all kind of different things you see on different readings. Is it all kind of connected in a way where they just make contact, or?
Whatever you see, whatever, I was going to make a comment about that. There's mental mediumship where you use no outer attunement to it, which most of us do. Just inspiration from spirit, like you say, through clairvoyance, clairaudience, or clairsentience. That's mental mediumship. What Bob's doing is probably going around longer than the mental mediumship. It's kind of like a combination of physical phenomenon and mental mediumship. Tarot cards use a similar process, the I Ching, whatever the client does when they're ordering it, shuffling the cards, shaking the dice, whatever methodology is used, the theory is that the spirit, either the person's spirit or the spirit entities around them, are ordering the choices, ordering the cards, whatever you do. There's an intuitive process by the person, not the reader, that orders the reading. And then either Bob does the paints, a card reader does the tarot cards. Once the client shuffles them, because that's how tarot cards work, is the client shuffles them and hands them back to you. And the ordering of the cards is done by the spirit inspiration of the person that's getting the reading. So there's different tools. It's all the same energy. It's all the same God. It's all the same, intuitive process, just a different outer expression. It's like whether an artist chooses to be a sculptor or a painter. It's the same creative process internally that expresses outwardly through the personality of the person doing the work. So it's an individual process that people develop to express outwardly. The other part of colors is Bob was giving what they call the universal interpretation of colors. People themselves, as they begin to work with colors, sometimes have an individual perception of them. My perception of black, it depends on the clarity of the color. If it's an obsidian or velvet black, that shows personal empowerment, full personal empowerment of the individual. Very self-sustaining, very self-assured. If it's flat black, that tends to indicate a little bit of illness with the person. And some people interpret black as death or as bad all the way through. It just depends on how you've developed your intuitive ability, because the spirit entities work with you and order your personal language. It's like learning a foreign language, learning how to read symbolically or intuitively. The spirit works with you as you are as an individual. And in the beginning, you learn a system where this is that, so your mind can be ordered to receive the process properly. And after you develop your own ability, it begins personalized, where you stop adhering to the system so much and make it your own. That's when you start growing as an individual, self-generating your intuitive ability, whether it's professionally, personally. You have to step beyond the system you started with, because the system confines you, it binds you, it holds you to where you can't be yourself. So at some point you will develop beyond the system, otherwise it's not self-generating. It doesn't grow as you grow as an individual. So but systems are important in the beginning. And systems are good because if you ever get really distressed or distraught, you can find your place again. There's a system there you can go back to and plug yourself back into it, order yourself back to being personally motivated again. It's just like learning any other motivational tool. There's a process that you can find yourself with, and I teach that with mediumship. A CERT process, CERT, communicator, evidence, reason, and tie it up. That's so that if you're standing in front of 50 people doing a public message service and you suddenly drift off and you go, oh my God, what was I saying? You got a chance to come back and find your place in the process and unfold the process, and then the intuitive part starts again. So systems are good for finding your place under conditions of duress, but they're not good to adhere to strictly because they confine personal development. That's my feeling anyway. Any questions about that?
Steve, I just wanted to mention that I have to keep things very simple that I can relate to everyday life in my work. And sometimes you read a book and you see the chakra system, and it's far away where we want to be with our knowledge. And I try to put it together as a fetus being created in the womb. And the first color is fire, and so on with nature. The color blue means communication. When you look up at that Florida sky, the second color orange it's a harvest. We need to harvest in order to the color orange, so the second and third and so on. If you relate to simple things in life, it's much easier to put the two together. So thank you, Steve.
Steve, just staying with colors and interpretation of colors, what if somebody that you're working with has a whole different interpretation of the color scheme? And it's like, okay, what if I'm looking, as an example, if I'm looking at black as a negative thing, and let's just say that I've always looked at black as a negative thing in life, and then I'm coming to you or coming to Bob and hearing, well, that's not what it is. So what?
There's a three-way process that goes on with any spirit moment. You've heard me talk about a moment of creation. When I teach mediumship or intuitive discernment, you have to sense the moment of creation you're in with the person you're at. And that moment of creation is generated by the spiritual forces that have brought the both of you together to that moment. And that spirit force, whether you believe in angels, spirit guides, whatever you believe to be the emissaries of the divine source, knows how you're going to read. So they order what the reading's going to be as the reader interprets it. So
You interpret it.
right, as the reader would interpret it. The client orders it as the reader would interpret it. Because the whole message is generated by the spirit forces. So they generate a reading. Regardless of what you think you're going to say, they have you say what's needed to be said in that moment for that person. So it doesn't really matter if their color interpretation is different than yours. The total overall spirit influence is going to produce needed communication for the person at that time.
So that in that sense, there wouldn't be any set color scheme, and you say, well, this is what it is, absolutely. This is the colors that match, and these are the absolute colors that are.
Well, again, I think you're missing the point. You're getting stuck on the system and not seeing the whole creative process.
The creative process to me would be that it would be what you said before that.
Right, the spirit knows needs to be said, and they will inspire the participants to where that message will come out in the fashion it needs to come out. If you're doing mental mediumship, you say things, like I was giving a lady a reading one time, and I told her she had a picture turned upside down on the table, and I was reading for her. And I said, you're going to have a relationship, your relationship's going to go back like it was in the beginning, instead of like it is now, back about 10 years ago. And she got very distressed. Now, most of us, our relationships are we always look at it as being better in the beginning, and then it settles down a little bit, but it's very exciting in the beginning. She got extremely distressed. And I said, what are you so distressed about? She said he was abusive in the beginning of the relationship, and he's been kind of nice for the last 8 or 9 years. So what I said and what I thought were two different things, meaning to her. And the same thing happens with colors. The message comes across as it's needed to come across. You're inspired to say what you say from your discipline. They hear what's needed to be heard in the fashion that their mind processes it. And what you think or feel rarely has any bearing on the outcome of the message, if you're truly speaking intuitively. Because you're not giving people advice. You're giving them an intuitive message from the unseen side is how it works. So what you think you're saying a lot of times is not what you're saying. So you say what you're inspired to say based on the system you're using, based on the attunement that you have, and you say it without interpreting it. That's the biggest mistake people make, is they try to interpret it or fit it to what they think it should say. And in that example right there is a perfect example. What you say is, and what you think you said are not always the same thing. So you just act as a completely intuitive worker, and it's not just confined to mediumship or practiced intuition. You as an individual, when you interact with another person on a compassionate level, have that same process working with you. Even though you've never learned colors, even though you may have never learned symbology, you are inspired to say things for the moment to help that person. And that's the same process without a designated system.
That really rings true with something that I've often thought about when you're in a conversation with somebody. I mean, that's just really weird to say that. Because oftentimes, you know how you just say something that comes out and you think, oh, that's the stupidest comment I ever could have made after you leave. And I've had like a couple of people come up like time later, you know, like a month or whatever, and they'll see me and they'll say, you know, when you said that to me, and then it'll be like, that's just what I needed to hear, they'd say. And I was like so embarrassed, that, how did that even come out of my mouth, you know?
Well, that's because you said something intuitively, and then your personal side come in and said, well, I didn't say that.
I know, you're embarrassed, you know. And
But that's how it works almost every time I do a reading. I get down and I'm going, what the heck am I saying that stuff to those people for? And that proves to you that you're in an intuitive sense. You're not in your own mind. You're not speaking from your education. You're speaking from spirit inspiration, and you feel like that afterwards.
So I don't want to drag this on, but
What a God.
But the analytical mind wants to. So
because what comes to me is that if I'm a child, as a child, and I'm being taught about the colors, and if I'm being told, well, this color means this, then I'm likely to believe that. Instead of coming to a point of saying, well, you know, I can look at that color and that doesn't mean that. That means this to me. So I'm not
Now you're
even
being a scientist. Now you're being a scientist instead of a spiritualist.
But I think that it gives the person an opportunity to intuitively connect. Instead of being told that this is what this color means, this is the meaning of this color.
But these are
Somebody else's
this is
perception.
my tools. This is my interpretation of what I learned and put it all together. You probably would be able to do that with the Native American colors and do that to people. You can ask for the sunrise, what color do you see in the sunset?
Again, you're confusing the fixed system with the intuitive process. The fixed system is what we get to put our mind on things, to get us beyond what we know now. The fixed system that's taught moves you beyond the reality that you're in a constructive fashion, because our physical mind is a consecutive reasoning operation. So you have to have something that presents itself that the mind will accept. But once you hit that fixed point and you start what I call turning knowledge into wisdom, through your experiences, through your intuition, sometimes that information changes.
Right.
That's what has to happen.
Yeah, and I get caught with the fixed, because for kids, they're taught certain things. And sometimes they don't have that opportunity to see, well, intuitively, it can mean something else, and it's okay to mean whatever it is.
Everybody has a guiding influence in their life on the unseen side. And everybody will be inspired to be where they need to be. They will be given other thoughts than what they're taught. And we'll move beyond it. That's what that lesson I gave on self-awareness was several classes ago. And for those of you that are here for the first time, if you put your name down and an email down, I'll send you the entire lesson package, which is this here. We've gone over for the last 4 weeks. There's a lesson in there called self-awareness, and it's about 6 pages long, but the basic gist of it is, as you begin to look beyond your senses, look beyond your reality, you begin to seek answers to what is greater than yourself. And you naturally begin to look outward. You naturally begin to seek these answers, and it has nothing to do with your age. It has to do with your state of awareness of your mind. So I would suggest, and I've got that here, to ask you to reread that self-awareness lesson, because there's a lot of information there. Every 2 or 3 lines, it gives forth another thought about what you can do and how you can do it with your own life. That's why it's called self-awareness. It's teaching yourself how to look outward, teaching yourself to trust when you look outward. So,
I just wanted to say that I asked you if I could do that art project in the church. your comment was, as long as you do it with love. That's what made sense to me.
Difference, color, means meaning is like the difference between learning God or learning Buddhism or whatever, and learning Creator. It's another step in the same process.
I was just gonna simply say that basic color schemes of, the chakras and, what emotions or what feelings you're supposed to be in tune with. It's pretty much, the analogy is like you're going into kindergarten. It's pretty much simple mathematics, and you got to do the simple stuff before you can get to calculus. And the more and more you learn, the more you uncover of how you were able to just have a basic principle for each color, but you can separate yourself from what you've been taught and actually just learn how to channel everything and make your interpretations from there.
Good information. This is the lesson we're going to be going over next. Those that are new here, I've got some copies of it.
Do you have another one? I couldn't hear this one.
Oh, so do you, so
Thank you.
This is your lesson in practice. The lessons. Thank you. Okay, that's the last page of this that I handed out, and it's the one that I sent out on the email if you have it. We'll go over this briefly, and then we're going to do an attunement exercise to feel the difference between energy and power. Something I'd ask you to do is to put your cell phones on vibrate so we don't get interrupted too much. Yes. It's called energy versus power. What most people feel when they begin this type of process is energy, not true spiritual power. Energy is associated with places, with people, with ritual. That's what most people feel. And you hear them say it all the time, oh, the energy of the room, the energy of the group. Energy is more magnetic and physical than it is spiritual. And it's what we, again, it's kind of like what I was talking about before. The first system you learn in this type of personal awareness is to feel energy. And that's what everybody says. Feel the energy, feel this, feel that. Spiritual power is more something that is constant. It never fluctuates, it never varies. It's like the undercurrent to everything that is there. You heard him say that God is the divine creative source and is in everything. And that's basically the concept that I'm talking about now. Spiritual power, your spiritual power, is actually a concept that you would call God at rest. It's like sensing God not in action. The immensity of it, the stability of it, the true sense of it is God at rest, not God in action. So when you meditate on this, and we'll do an attunement exercise so you can kind of feel the difference. I have a set of visualizations I'll lead you through so you can feel the actual difference between energy and spiritual power that we'll do after the break. And once you feel it, there's an exercise at the bottom of the page that will allow you to reconnect with it. It's a little bit longer the first time, but if you do the bottom part after the first time, you'll be able to reconnect to it, because your mind, once it is taught how to get somewhere, it remembers how to get there. You don't need a teacher to keep telling you how to get there. Your mind remembers. It's clear to you, and through visualizations. This whole class has been about what you think, how you think, and realizing that you can guide your mind and your life by your thoughts. Now, we've all heard that, but it gets a little more difficult when you have to actually put it into practice. So this will start you off at feeling the true presence of God within your life. You'll feel the quietness, you'll feel the stability, the permanence of it. It's underneath everything. And if you can feel that, you will always have a trust, no matter where you're at or what you're doing. You'll feel that comfort, you'll feel that support. No matter what's going on around you, you'll be able to draw back to that sense of power in your life and be able to find a calm in the storm. And that's what the purpose of this is, because energy tends to be more affected by the outer conditions of your life. It tends to shock, it tends to soothe, it tends to ebb and flow quite a bit, depending on the conditions around the room. But what people really want is to feel that presence of God, that constancy of it, that continual presence that's always there. So that's what this exercise, this meditation will do. And again, if you have a chance, read that self-awareness lesson again that I sent out a couple of weeks ago, because it designates all of the different ways of slowly unfolding yourself to that greater awareness. It's just by thought, it's by understanding principles and realizations. You're 100% the spirit you can be right now. And it's a matter of our conscious mind making that connection, our conscious mind trusting that. Because we fight instincts, we fight cellular memory, we fight a lot of things that's attached to this flesh that makes us question the worth of the higher-minded studies. And that's the downfall of a lot of people, is they get into a very difficult physical situation and they set aside all their higher-mindedness until the physical situation passes. And then they want to pick back up the higher-minded studies when it's not a challenge. There's a saying from another group I come from, it's easy to be grateful when bills are paid. It's a little harder to be grateful when you're struggling financially and trying to get by those things. And the only way you get by that is the higher-mindedness of a sense of self-worth through your connection to your spirit. Knowing that these things are impermanent, knowing that they will pass, that they don't dictate who you are and what you are. The true inner being dictates that, and that's what you have to draw to. But again, it's pretty tough to do because of the instincts, because of our genetic conditioning. It's a lot of that stuff is within us that's the first thing that wants to pop out there. So our higher-minded studies tend to temper that. It tends to give us another view. And after a while, instead of the instincts and the genetic memory being first, they both come out at the same time. And you get to choose. And then it begins to recede to where the spiritual conditioning is out more than the genetic response and the instinctual response. That's why it's a daily thing. It's a daily effort, a daily thinking. It's not where you have to meditate every day, but you have to think about spiritual thoughts every day. You have to think about higher-minded disciplines, even if it's only for a couple of minutes. You can open the Bible and read a passage out of it. You can open an inspirational book and read out of it. It's getting your mind vibrating at that higher-minded rate at the beginning of the day. That's what the purpose of it is. And at the end of the day, you may be in just as tough a spot as if you hadn't, but you started the day clean. You get in the habit of starting that day with that positive outlook. And it lasts longer and longer and longer when you do that. It's a growing process. So just work with that. We'll take a short break now, 5 minutes for a bathroom break, go around back.